Most of us accept some version of the theory that I call common sense morality. According to this theory, there are certain things that each of us ought to try to achieve. These are what I call our moral aims. We successfully follow this moral theory when each does what, of the acts that are possible for him, best achieves his moral aims. In my cases, however, it is certain that if all, rather than none, successfully follow this theory, we will thereby cause the moral aims of each to be worse achieved. Common sense morality is here directly, collectively, self-defeating. Is this an objection? Let us start with a smaller question. Could we revise our theory so that it would not be self-defeating? If there is no such revision, ours may be the best possible theory. We should first identify the part of our theory which is self-defeating. One part of a moral theory may cover successful acts on the assumption of full compliance. Call this part ideal act theory. This says what we should all try to do, simply on the assumptions that we all try and all succeed. Call this what we should all ideally do. All here does not mean everyone living. It means the members of some relevant group. As I argued in Chapter 1, it is not enough to decide what we should all ideally do. We must take into account these 4 facts. A. We are often uncertain what the effects of our acts will be. B. Some of us may act wrongly. C. Our acts are not the only effects of our motives. D. When we feel remorse or blame each other, this may affect what we later do and have other effects. Our moral theory, therefore, has 5 parts. Our ideal act theory, saying what we should all ideally do when we know that we shall all exceed. Our practical act theory, saying what each of us ought to do given A and B. Our ideal motive theory, saying what motives we should all ideally have given A and C. Our practical motive theory, saying what motives each of us should have given A, B, and C. Our reaction theory, saying which are the acts for which we ought to be blamed and should feel remorse given A, B, C, and D. When we are deciding what we believe, we should first consider our ideal act theory. In asking what we should all ideally do, we are asking what our ultimate moral aims should be. These are the foundation of our moral theory. The other parts of our theory are what we need to claim given our ultimate moral aims when we consider the 4 facts stated above. How we can revise common sense morality so that it would not be self-defeating. Suppose that we accept some version of common sense morality. In my examples, what is true is this: if all of us successfully follow our moral theory, it will be directly self-defeating. What is self-defeating is our ideal act theory. If we should revise our theory, this is the first part that we should revise. Call our theory M and its revised version R. One of R's claims is R1. When M is self-defeating, we should all ideally do what will cause the m given aims of each to be better achieved. Thus, in all my parents' dilemmas, we should all ideally do 2 rather than 1. This would make the outcome better for all our children and would enable each to benefit his own children more. R1 revises our ideal act theory. If we revise this part of our theory, we shall naturally be led to revise the rest. Consider first our practical act theory. This describes what each of us ought to do, given the facts A, that we often do not know what the effects of our acts will be, and B, that some of us will act wrongly. Return to the case of a public good which would benefit our children. One such good is the conservation of scarce resources. Suppose that we are the poor fisherman in the fisherman's dilemma, trying to catch enough to feed our children. Because there is overfishing, there are declining stocks. It is true of each that, if he does not restrict his catch, this will be slightly better for his own children. They will be slightly better fed. This is so whatever others do. But if none of us restricts his catch, this will be much worse for all our children than if we all restrict our catches. All our children will be much worse fed. According to R1, we should all ideally restrict our catches. If some fail to do so, R1 ceases to apply. But it would be natural to make this further claim. Each should restrict his catch provided that enough others do so too. What counts as enough? There is a natural answer to this question. Consider any public good that would benefit our children, and that will be provided only if there are voluntary contributions. Assume, for simplicity, that there is no upper threshold above which contributions would be wasted. Our children will benefit most if we all contribute. Suppose that each of us knows that there will be some parents who will not contribute. There must be some smallest number k, which is such that if k or more parents contribute, this will be better for each contributor's children than if none contribute. If only one contributes, this will be worse for his children than if he does not contribute. If all contribute, this will be better for all our children than if none contribute. Somewhere between one and all, there must be the number k where the change from worse to better comes. The number k has 2 special features. 1. If k or more contribute, each contributor is joining a scheme whose net benefit is the effect of benefiting his own children. The children of each contributor will be benefited more than they would have been if no one had contributed. 2. If less than k contribute, any contributor's children will be benefited less than they would have been if no one had contributed. 1 and 2 make k a plausible moral threshold above which each parent ought to contribute. We can claim R2. In such cases, each ought to contribute if he believes that there will be at least k contributors. If our practical act theory claims R2, this change in our moral view may often change what we do. It may be said, since one is true, we need not claim that each ought to contribute if he believes that there will be at least k contributors, since each is joining a scheme whose net benefit is to benefit his own children. His love for his children will make him want to join this scheme. Doing so will be better for his children. These claims are false. Suppose that at least k parents contribute. The children of these contributors will be benefited more than they would have been if no one had contributed. But each contributor is doing what is worse for his own children. It would be better for each contributor's children if he did not contribute and spent all that he saved in time, money, and energy to benefit only his children. This is true however many others contribute. Since each contributor is doing what is worse for his own children, we need to claim that each ought to contribute if he believes that there will be at least k contributors. Each ought to contribute since, though each is doing what is worse for his own children, the k contributors are together doing what is better for all their children. To support R2, we can also point out that if any parent does not contribute when others do, his children will be free riders. They will benefit from this public good at the expense of the children of contributors. They will benefit at their expense because A, they will be benefited more than the children of contributors, and B, this is true because each contributor did what was worse for his own children. Similar claims apply to our other special obligations. According to common sense morality, we ought to give some kinds of priority to the interests of those people to whom we are related in certain ways. Besides our children, some examples are our parents, pupils, patients, clients, those whom we represent, and our fellow citizens. Let us say that we are M related to these people. There are several other kinds of M relation. What these relations have in common is that, according to common sense morality, or M, we have special obligations to all of those to whom we are M related. There are countless cases where, if each gave priority to his M related people, this would be worse for all these people than if no one gave priority to these people. According to R1, what we should all ideally do in such cases is to give no priority to our M-related people. If we followed R1, this would be better for all these people. Suppose that we know that some of us will give priority to our M-related people. R1 ceases to apply. But there will again be some smallest number k such that if k or more do not give priority to their M-related people, this will be better even for these people than it would be if all gave priority to their M-related people. We can therefore plausibly claim R3. When M is self-defeating, each of us ought to give no priority to those to whom he is M-related, if he believes that at least k others will act in the same way. If we accept R3, this may again often change what we do. As before, If each of K people gives no priority to his M-related people, each is doing what is worse for these people. This is why, according to common sense morality, each is acting wrongly. But though each is doing what is worse for his M-related people, these K people are together doing what is better for all these people. Though these K people act in a way that M claims to be wrong, they together cause to be better achieved the M-given aims of each. Since they follow R3 rather than M, they together do better even in M's terms. Consider next the parts of our theory that claim what our motives ought to be. Suppose that each could either 1. Save his own child from some lesser harm, or 2. Save another's child from some greater harm. According to R1, we should all ideally do 2. But should we be disposed to do 2? If the lesser harms would themselves be great, such a disposition might be incompatible with love for our children. This may lead us to decide that we should remain disposed to do 1. If we remain so disposed, we may therefore, in such cases, do 1 rather than 2. Our children would then suffer greater harms. But if we are to love them, this is the price they must pay. It is worth describing the extreme case. Suppose that you and I each have 4 children, all of whom are in mortal danger. We are strangers, and we cannot communicate. Each could either 1. Save one of his own children, or 2. Save 3 of the other's children. If I love my children, I may find it impossible to save the lives of 3 of your children at the cost of letting one of my children die. And the same may be true of you. We will then both do 1 rather than 2. Because we love our children, we save only 2 of them when we could have saved 6. It will on the whole be better if we continue to love our children. This may sometimes make it causally impossible that we do what R1 and R2 claim what we ought to do. This falls into the moral category of blameless wrongdoing. But there will be many other cases where this would not be true. Thus, it is possible both to love our children and to contribute to most public goods. If we turn to our other special obligations, it is less plausible to claim that we should be disposed not to do what R3 claims that we should do. Thus, the governments of different countries ought to be able not to give priority to their own citizens when this would be better for all their citizens. When we consider the effects of having different dispositions, the plausible view, in most cases, is that we should be disposed to act upon R3. I have claimed that if we ought to revise common sense morality, we ought to accept claims R1 to R3. Since we ought to love our children, there are certain extreme cases where we ought not to be disposed to act upon these claims. And there may be certain other similar objections. But in most cases, we ought to be disposed to act upon these claims. We should therefore often change what we do.